Hi syndicates, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be answering 2 essential questions that creators have been asking me left and right, especially y'all beauty influencers out there, about management. And the first question is, should I be reaching out to get representation from a management agency or a talent agency? And the second question is, if a management agency does reach out to me, what should I do? So if you're at the point of your creator career, if you have a certain amount of following or you are getting, brand deals right now, brand sponsorships, and you don't really know if you want to take the next step of getting representation through managers or agents versus doing everything yourself, then I'm here to give you my personal experiences. Just as a disclaimer, these are all personal experiences and all personal opinions. Everybody has a different take on whether or not they would prefer having managers or not having managers, doing everything themselves. I personally have decided to take on a management team. I have 2 wonderful managers, and I'll talk about that in this video today. But I've also had the experience of managing myself while I was a content creator and doing brand sponsorships. So if you want to know how I managed myself as a content creator before I got a team to do it for me, then make sure to watch this video afterwards. And then without further ado, let me tell you all about how I work with my managers. The first question I get from a lot of beauty influencers and creators is, should I be reaching out to management teams if I'm already getting brand offers right now? Is it worth it? This question is going to differ per person, but I definitely, when I first started getting my brand offers, I was asking myself the same thing. The real answer is there is no right answer of whether or not you should get a management team. I myself have not been able to, handle the workload with being able to pitch outbound offers, make connections with other brands and agencies in order to get the deals, and I've been relying on inbound offers, and even then it was getting a bit overwhelming. So at that point, that's when I decided that having a management team would be very helpful, but I didn't go out of my way to go find people, even though I had enough of a following in order to be able to get enough brand deals for a living. So I did a lot of research, and I recommend doing the same. First of all, this video is part of your research, but part of having managers that's helpful is if you have absolutely no experience with building media kits, rate cards, looking at your own engagement rates, doing some competitive audits. Those are what managers are really, really good for, depending on the person or the team that you are working with. I have very hands-on managers who are constantly working their butt off to be able to reach out to people for me. But in the beginning, when I was doing everything myself, I didn't have that much time to put into finding the right contacts. I didn't have the connections in the industry. What I did rely on was people finding me. And at that point, that was already enough. So if it was just that, then I feel like I could have made a sustainable living without having managers. But because I was feeling overwhelmed by that process, I couldn't respond to enough emails. I couldn't negotiate well enough because I felt really about having to price myself. And due to that, the management team offering their services to me was something of interest. But if you feel like you are able to tackle everything on your own and do a bunch of research independently, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with managing yourself. It's just a matter of what you are comfortable with and what works for you. And also a sub question from that, I guess other people would be asking, and something that I also asked myself in the beginning, is when should I be asking for representation? Is there a right way or wrong way to do it? For me personally, I did not ask for any representation. I thought about it and decided that I didn't want to reach out to people until they reached out to me. I felt like it was a bit weird that if they didn't discover me, then I was asking for it. But I did look up the types of talent agencies and management agencies that I would be interested in should people start reaching out, just to find out what type of services they offered, because I just needed to know what this whole industry was about. I think a good time to think about whether or not representation is right for you is 1, if someone already reached out to you about representation, or 2, if you already are doing brand deals and brand offers and you kind of feel like you're underwater with all of that. The second question I get from creators is, if a management agency does reach out to me or a talent agency, what should I do from then on? How should I respond? First of all, look at the email. In my personal experience, it's never a generic email. It's always a specific person that is reaching out to you saying, hey, would you want representation? Have you ever considered representation? And they're probably going to offer you a call. I like to equate it as if it was a company with an HR team, and the HR reaches out to you as a recruiter and has a screening conversation with you before talking to the hiring managers. It's never usually a very generic email from a company saying, hey, we want to represent you, click this link and, sign up for or register for something. I'd say it's safer when there's one specific person who is reaching out to you, just because that is probably the person who wants to represent you. And to have that connection of one person going, I would like to represent you, is more important than if there was a bunch of influencers they're sending a mass email out to and hoping that someone wants to be represented. The second thing you need to do immediately afterwards is respond to this email after looking through this email and doing your research by kind of going to their website, looking at who this person is, maybe checking out their LinkedIn to know that they're actually a person and that you're not just clicking random links from a spam or scam. And yeah, hop on a Zoom call with them or FaceTime, whatever it is, and just chat with them. You want to know that they're trustworthy and that they're hardworking, because they got to be out there pushing out your face and your likelihood so that people will want to work with you. Ask them, what brands do you work with? Look at their roster of the brands that they're already connected with, because you want to work with a management team that already has existing connections with, the industries that you already want to tap into, whether that's beauty brands or advertising agencies that works with brands that you actually want to connect with. And that's very important, very appealing to know. And a lot of them will probably put it on their websites already or on their socials, or they'll have pre-existing campaigns with other influencers, and you can kind of make the connection of what brands that they have in their little roster. Then you want to look at the influencers they already work with. So they will have a roster of brands, and they will also have a roster for influencers. You want to see the types of influencers that they're working with. For me, a couple things that I personally looked for was, do they have a diverse roster of influencers? Are they women ran? Because I appreciate that a lot, because women empowerment is important to me. I also look for what type of talent they're representing. Are they only representing beauty influencers? Are they only representing models? Because if they're only representing like 6-foot models and I'm this like tiny petite person who does makeup and is like kind of okay, funny, makes kind of funny videos on TikTok and Instagram and educational videos on YouTube, then that's probably not the best fit. Always make sure you understand and know why this person reached out to you in the first place. What types of videos were they attracted to, or what type of content were they attracted to by your page? You can poke their brain a little bit, because you want them to actually be genuine about it. And you want to make sure that they're just not sending out this like incredibly big mass email to a bunch of people and then BSing their way to get a bunch of clients under their belt. And after you look through their roster of brands and influencers and get to know them a little bit to see if they have good work ethics and you guys get along, then you need to ask about their commission structure if they don't offer it up front. In my experience, the commission structure for management companies are about 15% to 30% on average, which may seem like a lot, because it is, but that's why it's also important to know what managers actually do for you and also what types of deals that they could get for you. And I think the commission structure, the commissions that they take from people, are probably the reason why a lot of people don't choose to work with managers, because they're like, I do all the work and like I get my money taken from my pocket after I do all this stuff. But there are definitely benefits of working with managers, which I will also be describing later on in this video. The third thing that you should be thinking of and asking these questions is, do you vibe well with these people? And are they easy to contact? I don't know how many times I have actually panic texted my managers at like 11 o'clock at night because we mixed up a date or something. And this is more in the beginning of what we were working with, but I'm like, oh my gosh, the audio file is not working, or the thing that I did ended up being last minute because it was a tight turnaround, what to do when the brand doesn't send you the right things and you're waiting on them. So these things you would have to involve your managers with whenever it comes to like a brand campaign. You need to be able to see if they're reliant and if they're willing to contact you and make themselves available for you. I feel like you should always have access to your managers. Also, like, obviously respect their working hours and not be bothering them all the time, because I'm a workaholic, so I'm like making things all the time. So I try to set that balance, meaning if I send a text later tonight, I'm not going to expect them to respond until like tomorrow morning or something like that. But if I do have something that's super, super urgent and knowing that a campaign is coming up, they're on it. So they're definitely there to help me and support me whenever I need it, and I can always call them. And that's the type of managers that I really like to work with. Someone who is just as invested in my content as I am. But obviously everybody works differently. So this is just something that I personally like, is having access to my managers on a more unconventional schedule. And you can also ask the questions of, how often do you guys want to contact each other? So some people want to have weekly meetings, some people do bi-weekly meetings. My managers actually have office hours, so I just book them whenever I need to actually have a conversation with them. But otherwise, sometimes I'm just going about my day, doing my content. I'm also a content creator coach. So because I have all these other obligations that I need to do that take up my time, including including production and planning and stuff like that, I don't always have to have a call with my managers every single week. But if there's something that's coming up, meaning they hopped on a call and there's someone who's interested in me, there's a long-term partnership happening, they will probably call me randomly in the morning and just be like, hey, can we just have a chat? And those will definitely happen. So it could be spur of the moment, it could be structured, but that's something that you have to ask what your management team or your potential management team would be comfortable with. And also what you are comfortable with has to match what they're comfortable with. This is supposed to be a team effort. Okay, I sort of mentioned this a while ago, but number 4, are they your fans? And you can tell by asking a very simple question. What's your favorite look that I've done? What's your favorite video that I've done? And like, see if they only respond with your most recent video or your most recent photos, because I want to know if my managers have done their research on me and they're legitimately interested in my content and not just because they want to make money off of me. Specificity in their responses is something that I'm definitely looking for. When I had a conversation with my managers over Zoom, I felt like I was having wine night with some girlfriends, and they were completely fangirling over the stuff that I was doing. Even without me asking, they were already offering up their favorite videos. They're saying, I found you via this video and I went through all your other videos and I really love the series that you did. Like, they really looked at my stuff and really wanted to represent me because they just simply love the content that I do. And I think this is really important. Not that you need like fangirls or whatever as your management team, but someone to be out there rooting for you and, you know, showing up and telling people with a passion, you know, this person I believe in, right? You can't really fake that. So having a management team out there pitching for you, it's really important that you know that they love your work just as much as you do, and they feel confident about promoting your work for them. Because even if you're the best salesman in the world, if you don't have that passion for it, then there's going to be a disconnect right there. Now, at this point, I really want to make a point to say that you really do not need a manager if you can do it all by yourself. I feel like if I had not started a separate business on the side, I probably would have stuck to being my own manager. I probably would not have signed with a management team, but I saw the benefits of working with a management team because of the fact that they handled a lot of stuff that are more administrative and things that I kept saying, oh, I'll do that, or I'll do some research on that, and I just didn't have time to sit down and do it. And they also had existing connections or knew exactly where to find those connections, and immediately there was a lot of back and forth of how can we help you, a lot of support that I felt that I really needed at the time when I felt most alone in my content creation journey. So having their support really meant the world to me. But yeah, you like absolutely don't need a manager. Like, you can still be a successful influencer without one. It just might be a lot more work. And the thing that really stood out to me in our conversation was that one of my managers said, we just want you to focus on creating and having fun with creating. And that really struck a chord with me because I forgot the term for it, but it really hit me because I was actually at the point where I was getting frustrated that this was turning into so much of a business that I was spending half of my week, you know, doing all the things that a manager would be essentially doing for me. Okay, so what exactly does a manager do for you? This is again my personal experience, but what my manager does for me is allow me to have full creative control of my content still, but they pitch, they do outbound, and they organize all the inbound and respond to emails for me. And what that means is there are certain types of brands that will reach out to me where I'm 100% going to say yes to that. There's also other types of brands that reach out to me that I 100% do not work with, and they know the types of brands that I'm interested in, my brand values, the types of content that I produce, and we worked really, really closely, especially in the beginning, to figure out the tone of the conversation that is happening. I set up emails so I get a copy of all my inbound emails, so it's not only going to them, I just see what's coming in. That way, if they're like, hey Cindy, there's this brand that came in, it's a little bit interesting, did a little research on them, they're this and this, would you be interested in that? I already saw the email, I know what they're talking about, and I can quickly click the links and say, hey, I don't think this is the right fit for my brand, or hey, actually this is an opportunity I haven't explored yet, so maybe let's go ahead and like negotiate and see what we can get out of this. Another thing they do is network for you. So my managers spend a lot of time behind the scenes networking with agencies, especially ad agencies, because a lot of communications and advertising agencies work with the brands that I'm interested in. The brands themselves don't have the teams to do these marketing campaigns, so they outsource all of them. So they make friends with these ad agencies so that these people can connect me to a bunch of different campaigns for multiple brands, multiple accounts that they have under their belt. So instead of just working with one brand at a time and reaching out to all of them, we have agencies that kind of work with like 10 to 20 brands at the same time, and they will have their roster of influencers, including myself, and they will pitch my work and my rates to them. And that way we can kind of figure out a more long-term partnership. But they also do have those one-off, one-on-one brand relationships and know the people and can find the right contacts of whom to contact in their influencer partner teams in order to speak to the right person who is coming up with the next big campaign on TikTok, on Instagram, or maybe on YouTube. The third thing that I think is actually most beneficial to me besides the pitching part is they negotiate for me. I, as an artist, am terrible at promoting myself, and I tend to get undercut by payments. It is so hard to negotiate for yourself, and I don't think that that's something that's exclusive to me. I think that if someone puts pressure on you and is saying, like, for example, if you're like, okay, this is my rate, it's $500. I'm just pull one out of my butt. And they said, we actually really like your work, but we would prefer if it was $200. We don't really have a budget beyond that. We get that very often. It's really hard to try to negotiate higher because you have to push for yourself. And so negotiating for yourself is a bit difficult, especially when you're doing this full time and you need the money, you see the figures that they're offering. You don't want to drop the ball and say, no, I don't want to do this, because obviously $200 is still better than $0. But at the same time, do you really want to undercut yourself and undersell yourself? Because that could lead to word of mouth, another brand deal, and them telling you, oh, I'm only okay with this, blah, blah, blah. Having that management team is very protective for me. They can do all the negotiations of the rates without me. And I trust that they have my best interest in mind. Because of the fact that they work with a commission, they don't make any money unless I make money. So the more money that they can help me make, the more money that they can get. But yeah, definitely, I'm so happy I don't have to negotiate. But I mean, I will say though, my managers are extremely communicative with me. They will make sure that I'm okay and I approve of everything. First of all, that I like the brand that I'm working with. And second of all, the brand's offer is okay with me. And they will also deny and tell me, and they'll advise me on certain bad deals. There's definitely going to be reasons why they would say, hey, I think this is actually a good opportunity for you. You should take it and see where it leads to. Or, hey, we've actually said, if you do this first and then we see how that performs, it's kind of like a test, and then we can see if we can get this out of it. So there's different ways to work around it. Everything is absolutely dynamic. Everybody works differently. Every single brand works differently. And so it's about figuring out what's the best path forward together, but they won't do it if I'm not comfortable with it. They've never forced anything on me where I said, no, this is absolutely not something I want. And besides negotiating with the brands that are already interested in doing a paid brand deal with me, they also help me do a little bit of brand research. So a lot of this time I was wasting in the beginning was going on all the brand socials, on their websites, and trying to figure out, like, what does this brand do? What are their products? Where are they actually pitching me? And I didn't have time to like hop on a call every single time a brand reached out to me, or sometimes they weren't even offered. So they actually do the brand research for me, and they'll say, hey, like, actually this brand is a little sketchy, probably don't want to interact with them, even though they were offering something really great in the email. And then another time be like, hey, this brand is actually a very small business. Would you like to support them? Because two things that I'm really big on is philanthropy when it comes to causes that I believe in. And another thing is supporting small businesses, including artists. So a lot of the times if I do any pro bono work, it would probably be for small businesses that I really believe in, or specific artists that I will potentially reach out to do a collab with. So they're perfectly aware of the types of deals that I will and will not take, and my exceptions for if it was negotiated a little bit lower. I know that they always have my back, and I will always do whatever I can to make them look even better. Then finally, I'm not really sure every single management team does this, but mine has a very special one where they're able to give me a social media audit. And this is actually very helpful because you always want to be growing your social media either on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever it is, on TikTok. And it's really hard to be analyzing things yourself. I actually feel like I'm pretty good at it just because I am also an influencer coach. So this is the stuff that I teach, the part of social media marketing that's really important to me. And I cross-reference with other coaches as well to make sure that I'm always up to date on like the newest releases, but I can't possibly keep up with everything, especially with my own creation schedule. So having someone else in your management team looking at your stuff and very objectively kind of giving you periodic updates of, hey, this is something that you probably want to explore. It's been helping these other influencers with being a early adopter for an app, or maybe you should bump up your content over here because you could cross-pollinate with another content over there. And have you tried this? Have you tried that? I've seen it been working. And so they're always looking for ways to help me boost my content more so that I can be even more successful and gain more followers over a period of time. And especially the parts where I've been stuck. For example, I was stuck on YouTube for a really long time and I had no clue why I wasn't able to create videos that were popping off or anything. And now I have a steady stream of subscribers, thank you so much by the way, that are coming onto my platform and discovering my work. And I couldn't have done it without the help of my team as well. But also I did end up with that direction going going very firmly into researching by myself and figuring out what exactly that I needed to do in order to make this platform more successful, since it was a platform that I was struggling with the most. What they did offer in the beginning is also to bounce content ideas off of each other so that it could help me create campaigns, but that's something that I personally like to keep in control of. I said one of my superpowers is I'm able to come up with so many ideas. I have so many ideas that it would literally take me years to complete them, which is really, really great. And I'm always coming up with new ideas every single day, and I'm pivoting with the time. So if there's anything that's trending, I'm going to put that in first. If there's anything that someone else is specifically asking for, I want to cater to that instead of waiting to like post that video 6 months from now where it's no longer that relevant. Woo, something just fell. But yeah, that is something specifically that I did not need any help with, but that is also something that they offered to help with as well. So let's talk about misconceptions. The biggest misconception that a lot of people have, and that's something that I also went through, I'm guilty of this too, is that the manager does everything. You have to come into the management conversation with ideas. You should be totally in control of your content, and you should be constantly be working really, really hard to push out new content, fresh content, and doing research on your own. You do not rely completely on your managers to do all of the work. And that also means creating pitches, because since you're in control of your own creative content, you know yourself best. You know what you want to do and what you're interested in. So you have to communicate that to your managers. So when we're pitching, I'll say, hey, I have these series and this type of content that I could potentially help pitch X brand in order for you to make a stronger case of why I'm personally interested in it. Because there's a lot of brands I'm actually personally invested in, and I just didn't know how to like perfectly articulate or approach them. I didn't have the right context. Now that I have that connection through my managers, I can tell them, hey, this is exactly why I personally would like to work with them. Here are some of my ideas. I would love to do a video or a photo shoot with these products that they just came out with. Like, I'm fully in that process, helping the pitching, because we definitely do not want to send out generic emails to people and have them be blown off. And we try to, as much as possible, be as personal with the brands as we want them to be with us, so that we can build that very close relationship to build long-term partnerships. Certain managers will probably have access to your social media account so that they can go in and grab the analytics, but I personally do have this thing where I do not allow people to go into my accounts, but I personally do not allow this because I'm very protective over my passwords. I have been hacked before, and I really do not want this to happen again, especially now that this is actually my livelihood, being on Instagram, being on YouTube, being on TikTok, being on Twitter, being on there's so many platforms that I'm on. Oh my God, I don't even know what's on the list. But for security's sake, for privacy's sake, I've turned on all my two-factor authentications for every single app that I am on, and I refuse to give my password out to anybody, including my management team. So this brings back the point of you talking to your managers and figuring out what you're comfortable with. This was a hard no for me. Like, if they had said, absolutely not, this is the only way that we can work with you, you need to give us access to your analytics or else we don't want to work with you, I probably would have said no. But they were very, very flexible with that. And I also made the big promise to say that every single week I would be dumping in to Google Drive this folder of analytics from all of my socials. And I was also very, very organized. So there was a trust that was built between us so that I could compensate for the fact, so we could compromise on the fact that I didn't want them in my socials at all. But if you're just someone who constantly forgets about putting your analytics in a folder and sending it off to your managers, and they constantly are asking you for it, then I think it might be a good idea and a sign that your managers should probably have access to your analytics so that they could probably do all the screenshotting so they don't have to wait on you to be doing stuff for them. But I personally don't have that issue. What helps for me actually is setting these calendar invites to go, make sure you screenshot your analytics this week, make sure you screenshot your analytics this week, so that it doesn't go over a certain time period. Speaking of which, I need to screenshot my analytics this week. At the end of the day, it's all about communication and trust between you and your management team. For me, I love coming up with ideas, and what's made my campaign so successful this far is understanding what my audience wants and giving them exactly what type of content they're expecting from my page. I'm not changing myself. I'm not being forced into a bubble. I'm not taking on any brand deals where I feel I'm inauthentic, or I'm selling something that I don't believe in, or I'm engaging with a brand that is not ethical, at least to my knowledge. So as long as you have taken account into everything that I've talked about today in the video, you have built a personal and trusting relationship with the potential managers that you'd be working with, then I think you're probably ready to make a decision of whether or not you would like to work with managers or not. If you're in doubt, just write down a list of pros and cons between having managers and not having managers, and figure out which one works best for you and your needs. Oh my God, what is on my lips? Has this been on my lips this whole time? Chapped lips and foundation and lip oil all mixed together. That's gross. Okay, so much better. I don't know what was happening on my lips, but we're just gonna ignore that. If you have any further questions, make sure to leave a comment below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll see all my new videos coming up next week and the week after that and the week after that. As usual, stay creative, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Managers, managers, ooh, I want some managers, managers, ooh, 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 ooh.